Welcome to our cross-border conversation, AI in audio post-production, tools, trends and ethical creative integration. Thank you to Genelec for supporting this series of talks. I am delighted to hand to the speakers drawn from the ScreenCraft Works mentoring community.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I'm in Cape Town, South Africa. I'm a film composer and I obviously love what I do, and I'm going to pass to Faith.
I'm Faith. I am from Saskatchewan, Canada. I'm originally from North Carolina. I do audio post engineering. I wear many hats, but mostly I do mixing, a lot of sound design, and a lot of dialogue editing.
I'm Tammy. I'm a composer. I'm based in Los Angeles, originally from Australia. And yeah, looking forward to this conversation.
My name's Eric. I'm based in Berlin, Germany. I work for Genelec as a business development manager, but my second hat is being a mixing engineer, coming originally from film post, having mixed and recorded about 12 years in post-production. So I think a little bit of background in that field.
I'm Chuka. I'm the founder and CEO of Blink Studios. We're based in Lagos. We have small branches in Houston and a little one in London as well. I started off as an editor 20 years ago, and 10 years ago started Blink Studios purely as a post-production company, but it has over the years evolved into being a content creating company as well. And I'm quite excited to be here. I'm here more just in the capacity of I guess just learning more really from everyone else. I get to interact with a lot of people in various roles, right? And audio post-production is a very important one. And so in interacting with a number of people over the last couple of months, I know how much AI just has been evolving, and it's quite interesting to just see, what effects it has.
Does anyone want to go ahead with why they love doing what they do? Or should I start?
Please.
Go for it, Kelsey.
Yeah. I love doing what I do because it feels so magical to me. Adding music to a scene, and it just elevates all the emotional tension or whatever is happening in that scene. It really rounds it off, or the absence of it really is really quite stark. So I've always found it to be kind of like a magical tool, and it's like, wow. And I really enjoy the process. I go in to a scene and then I'll start composing, and then I come out and I'll be like, wow, that's amazing. How did I do that? I have no idea how we got here, but there it is. And it's just the most exciting and fulfilling feeling for me. I'm going to play a clip from a movie I did called Kint, and it was nominated for a SAFTA, and it was such an amazing experience. And yeah, it was just so, so beautiful.
Luister jy die water, is 'n vrotpampoen.
Kom! Dat is ongelooflijk!
Jy is ongelooflik.
Is het?
Lief wees.
Dank je.
Sê dit terug.
Sê dit nie om dit terug te hoor nie.
Ja.
Nee, wat? Nee, gaan we.
Sê dit.
Oh, nee, ek het jou lief.
Ja, dis goed.
That was very beautiful, Kelsey. When I saw it earlier, I was gonna, give my just feedback on it. Just the subtlety, to it was just what made it even most beautiful. I would say why I love what I do. I started off, I guess, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and why I stayed with this is just the ability to tell stories. I think just at the core of it, right? Just being able to tell stories and connect with other people, on just that, human level. That's what we've always done as humans, right from the get-go, right? Tell stories, we tell it in different ways. And I think with, making, film, TV, whatever it is, right? It's still just a way of us connecting. On another level, I would say the opportunity to, I guess, get other people around me to grow. And I think that that's just on this other hat that I, tend to wear more nowadays, right? We're just running, a company. It's then just seeing more people get opportunities to grow, in whatever it is that they're doing. So yeah, those are the two reasons for me.
I'd love to hear actually later why you started your organization, like what inspired you to find that. Actually, do you want to touch on that now? I'd love to hear the backstory.
Sure, I was editing. I imagine I was quite good at it, and it was quite fulfilling, right? It seemed like a natural thing for me. You're editing, and I think I actually, Kelsey, you're South African, yes? I spent a number of years in South Africa as well. We worked a lot on shows like Face of Africa, Miss South Africa, South African Idols, and all of that. And I think I got to a point I started to I wanted to do something more. I wanted to, because I visited Nigeria every now and then, right? And for me there was more maybe like a gap, right? Just in terms of structure, and stuff. There's a lot of talent, but just a gap in terms of structure, and I wanted to do something just extra, right? Something more to um I guess, I've been editing for about 10 years, so I felt I can still edit, but I want to then just create something that can allow more people to edit and create some structure. And that was why I moved to Nigeria, in 2015 and set up Blink Studios and haven't looked back since then.
So I got into film composing actually a little bit later in my life, but it's always been a passion of mine. I still remember when I was young, my parents had an old like VHS camera. I'm like really showing my age now, but I remember grabbing that camera and I would always just like want to film my sister or film my cousins and like put together productions. And I just had that natural like love for filmmaking and like telling stories. And then I was also at the same time a pianist and a performer. And I think when I was learning the piano formally, I just had more of an inclination to want to know how something was composed, how the music came together, what kind of emotions does that music bring out. And so I think those two passions just kind of naturally led me into film composition. And I think now working as a full-time composer, the part I love about the job is that I am a filmmaker more than a musician. Like I am a partner in the work and I'm there to serve the vision of my directors or my creators. And it's just amazing I'm like a tiny part, in the whole gamut of people that touch this production. And it's pretty amazing just to see and just have so much respect for how everyone's parts come together and the part we play to bring it together. So that's kind of why I got into all of this.
I can just second that the passion for music and was something for me that made me enter this industry, because I think we all probably come from a musical background, even though some of us end in technical jobs. At least it was for me. I was not good enough to be a guitar player, so I decided to go behind the curtain on the other side of the window in the studio and learn sound engineering and got into audio. Of course, started in film post because the music industry, as we all know, is a tough business and finding a job in music is difficult. But film at that time, and maybe we're a similar age, I'm a bit gray in my beard, so it's been a bit of time since I'm in that industry. Made me get into the film sound world, and I always had a passion for the mixing, for the re-recording mixing of the pieces, because I'm a big fan of the whole thing, having to overview not only music, not only dialogue, not only sound effects and Foley stuff. So I'm more the mixer type of guy. I'm definitely not the person who's, I mean, I did, but I don't like doing the dialogue editing bits and pieces and stuff like this. But I think we can touch on AI tools in a second, where this is definitely helping. Yeah, now I escaped the dark rooms and the 18-hour working shifts and got into rooms with daylight and can represent a beautiful company like Genelec, but still work with film people, but just from a different angle, but still knowing how it is. But as a side work, I actually do Dolby Atmos music production in my own studio. So
me and you are very similar in that way. Yours was you wanted to be a guitar player. Mine was I wasn't good enough to be a professional violin player. So I started out being a big orchestra nerd, wanted to go into music, discovered that I could mesh music and business, and thought that I was going to be a studio engineer for a while, recording bands. And then in school, we did our very first post-production project. I did a couple of redesigns for some animated scenes that I really love from movies that I really love, like How to Train Your Dragon and Avatar: The Last Airbender and WALL-E, and just like instantly just like fell in love with it. I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Like, I just did not realize that this industry was here. I didn't realize, you know, when I watched How to Train Your Dragon, I didn't process somebody sat down and made those dragon sounds, those dragon roars out of mismatching a whole bunch of different animals together. And that's what I did. And I was like, I love this. This is amazing. And so I've been doing it ever since. Now I'm freelancing. So I wear a lot of the hats, and every hat that I wear, I love individually. I do a lot of dialogue editing, a lot of mixing, a lot of sound design, a lot of SFX editing, just every chance that I get to work on a different niche of this industry. I just get more and more excited because I like the change of pace too. I like being able to work in different sections and meet different people. So yeah, that's kind of my journey of how I fell in love with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome everyone's favorite bear, Bubby!
Hello everyone, it's the Bubby Show, and I am Bubby Bear. Today we're going to talk about the alphabet. Woo! Anybody know what the first letter is? It's A! A is for all the people we know and love. B is for best friend. Hello, Mr. Sprinkles. And C is for... choking. And D is for... dead body. Eyeball. Freddy Fox's fermented feet! Go.
Hello.
Eric, I'm sure you have a very interesting take on how AI has changed your workscape so far. Do you want to start?
Sure, I can. I mean, when I started with film post, I was still juggling with 35mm film copies and magnetic sound. So AI was not on the radar, and we had to do everything manually, which was good because, I mean, that's how you learn it. But then you also appreciate how AI can actually help you in just automating things that you do daily. You know, just repeating tasks that are nonsense. You know, spending time on. I think talking about AI and audio posts, especially, I think we have to differentiate a little bit in the music part, in the dialogue part. Foley is a big thing. Background generation. You know, all these kind of things. So creating a soundscape for a movie. And I'm not making a big difference between TV and cinema. I just consider them as one. But obviously the projects where time is an issue, and then we talk obviously more about TV stuff, episodic stuff, AI can become quite handy also in generating content that is needed to get the job done in the time. So you can concentrate actually on, let's say, the mixing process or finalizing the dialogues, in my opinion, especially in TV, episodic or like documentary things where these elements count. But I think actually during also my production in immersive music, I pay a lot of attention to AI in music production, not only in the mixing but also in the generating part. And I mean, you can say what you want about AI, but it is a challenge, but it's also a big chance for all of us, you know. And a lot of people fear AI, which I completely understand, but I think we have to dig a bit deeper in there to see how we can actually benefit from it. And if we master AI, we cannot be mastered by AI, kind of. So that's my little take on it.
I'm gonna just throw this question right. Yeah, in speaking with a couple of the sound editors and sound mixers, you know, that we work with, I know that one thing one person has mentioned is a tool called Waves Illusion. I don't know if anyone has heard of or has used it, but I think it's quite similar to ChatGPT, where you can type the prompts and it generates you know, like Foley, you know, creates music for you. again, I wanted to ask Kelsey this, like, how is it possible, to well, I don't know. I don't think so. But again, maybe, someone else thinks that, right? But then just again, being able to get that human element to it, right? That emotion that you got with it. How are we able to, get that done? I know AI helps with stuff, but what are your thoughts, on stuff like, like generating music?
My thoughts with like generative AI for music is that at this moment, I don't think it's too big of an issue for composers because I don't think it's at a point where it can look at a scene and capture absolutely all of the nuances and all the emotional beats exactly the way the director wants. I mean, half the battle is decoding what a director is saying and making it so that you are obviously happy with your musical integrity, but they are getting what they're envisioning. So if half our battle is decoding, I don't really see a director being able to spit that into a fantastic prompt because it is still kind of technical to get exactly what you want. And then to then narrow it down beat by beat, I think will come with time. It might get better for sure, absolutely. But I think at this point in time, it's not quite there yet. And you can definitely tell when a director works with a human composer, they can see automatically the difference and how it elevates a project. So yeah, that's kind of my take on generative AI in music at the moment.
I would agree, Kelsey. I think where we're seeing the shift like instantaneously is more so in production music. So just to explain to people who maybe aren't so much in the music side of filmmaking, production music is where you develop a track that you haven't seen the vision for. So for example, you're just developing like a generic track that has a mood that fits a brief. So it could be, I want an action track or something that's emotional, right? And there are production libraries out there that composers develop tracks for. So it's not to actual vision. And there is a shift there. However, there are a lot of protections in place, like legislation wise, which is not allowing AI to be used in that form. But a lot of people are starting to use it in that space. And yeah, so I see that world probably changing the fastest, like even with advertising music too, because I guess it is formulaic in a way. I still believe advertising has so much craft to it, and you do need that human touch. But I think those are the spaces that are going to be touched. And then on the other aspect, like for us as screen composers, I think what is the hot topic right now, and I understand, like similar to what Eric was saying, there is a lot of nervousness around, what will my job look like? And I think it's completely understandable. But to Kelsey's point, I think there's just too much nuance in like what we do and the organic nature of what we do. But I do want to say to composers, and this applies to any creative in film, is to really link with your organization, so your guilds or your whatever organizations you belong to, because they are closely monitoring policy shifts and legislative shifts, at your local, state and national level. Because, for example, in the US, there are a lot of companies now that are requesting for composers to submit their works to train AI machines, so AI models. So it's important to know and educate yourself on your rights and also how things are changing, and to be able to lobby and also advocate for yourself as a creative. So I just wanted to like drop that in too, because that's kind of, I'm seeing that's like a big thing right now.
And on that note too, advocating for yourself. One time I was given this advice ages ago that I think like in a different way apply now. One of my good friends who's also a freelance post-production engineer said one time in a talk that when you as somebody freelancing or working accept like low-paying jobs, no non-paying jobs, take jobs from people who are willing to mistreat you or not give you the proper respect as a professional in this industry, and you accept that and you take those jobs, it can not only harm yourself, your own career, your own what you deserve, but it also harms the industry as a whole, because now those people who don't totally understand how much work and money and time goes into what we do, understand that there are people willing to accept that. So the people that are advocating for themselves can't find work because there are other people willing to take, the lesser pays. And I think that it goes, the same goes for AI. We have to be really careful as professionals in this industry that we don't take the lesser pay, the lesser hours. We understand the value of our work, the value that we have in our experience as creatives, to be able to advocate for ourselves and lobby and understand that there's a lot of room now with AI coming in of people wanting to cut costs, with wanting to cut hours, cut time, sacrifice the integrity of the project for efficiency or affordability or whatever it might be. And so advocating for yourself and advocating for other people is really important. Like one time I was approached by somebody who wanted some major dialogue cleanup done on our project. And it like the audio was, I tried my hardest, but it was really bad. Like the wind in the microphone just made the dialogue unintelligible. And I said, here's what I can do, but otherwise you're going to need to do some ADR, some automated dialogue replacement. And they said, well, we don't really want to pay a voice actor or the original actors. Do you have any experience with just automated, with AI ADR? And for me, myself, that's not something that I do. And that's something that other professionals get paid to do. So if I compromised on that and I was willing to be like, oh yeah, I could generate some ADR for you, I'd be taking work away from a voice actor or from those actors, which is really difficult. And I think somebody in the chat asked a question kind of similar to that about how will actors protect their voice if you can sample and reuse the voice, if you can generate ADR. And I think it just comes down to all of us as professionals to advocate to wherever we can to use like real people, to use professionals to be able to preserve that creativity. Because you guys are right that if we just stay in touch with our creativity and our talents, we're not replaceable. If we just like continue to expand our skills. But it comes on everybody in the industry to kind of work together on that, decide where the line is.
At some point, we also have to educate our audience about what is possible to be done with AI and what is actually human factor that we bring in. Because at some point, when we people will take it for granted and say, okay, well, that's how it sounds. That apparently it's how it looks. That's the new normal. So I think educating the audience with quality sound, quality picture, quality story, everything that's around, to kind of sensibilize on, hey, this is actually how you could do a movie in all aspects, with all the divisions. I think that is very crucial. But I think we should also talk about the positive changes and the helping tools that we can use for AI, or with AI for things. And I actually have one thing in my, it sounds a bit weird, but in my music mixing studio background, I was using a couple of times a software called Krotos. You probably have heard about them. Maybe they're doing like very interesting soundscape designing stuff, AI based, and I think that actually can also trigger creativity. And I mean, for me, basically AI, I use it a lot, even ChatGPT and things like that, to get inspired. Not saying that I'm using it, but to get that's a nice idea. Let's pursue that path and then create something on that. So I think in that way, it could be, especially in the creatives. I mean, we all know that there are times where we are not creative, and we suffer from that because I have to deliver, but I don't have the right idea. I can't get things done. I think AI can really help to kind of motivate us and even inspire us in some way.
I absolutely agree. I think in terms of generative AI in music, it would be a great kind of like sounding board for your ideas to get like, if you're really at a point where you have no creativity, nothing singing to you, the references aren't working, then I guess generative music would be a great sounding point. But obviously, I don't think it's ethical to use it just like that, because there is the whole question of what was it trained on? Was the right actually given to be trained on that? So who actually owns this at the end of the day? So you get those kind of questions. I also find, so I use ChatGPT quite a bit. So obviously for your normal administrative tasks, like help me take notes or help me write this email or help me summarize this or whatever it is. But what I find I really like using ChatGPT for is when I have a music theory question and it's gotten quite in depth. So for instance, I'm working on a jazz piece at the moment. And obviously I have some background in jazz and some training, but then the nitty gritty, sometimes the advanced extensions, I'm like, okay, this isn't working. Why is it not working? So yes, all of these questions you can find in a book. You can talk to someone, you could Google it, but sometimes it is a lot faster, especially when it's a very long question, to help you find those answers of like, oh, that's the problem. But I think also relying on that too heavily can be very dangerous because obviously chat can hallucinate and give you absolute nonsense. And so it is important to still have a background in whatever it is you're doing so that you know, okay, no, that is so offsides. That's really not going to help. So,
Did you know that the paid version of ChatGPT gives you different answers than the free version?
I didn't know that.
And yeah,
That is
we tried it. We were looking
Interesting.
we were asking for a song by the band Yes, from which album it was. I can't remember. It's an album in the 70s, and it gave the complete wrong answer. And we typed the same question in the paid one, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's the correct answer." So be aware what you get out of that. So just saying. No, but I fully agree, Kelsey, what you say. I think for me sometimes I also do a bit of composing work, not that much as you all do, but sometimes when you come to a scene and say, okay, now I need something in that or this particular genre, which is not my hometown genre. Actually, it gives a couple of hey, what could be a good like chord progression in the style of, and then you come up with an artist or a very famous song or something. Or sometimes also when the editing and the directors put in rough music tracks in the edit, and then you have I don't know, a Michael Jackson song. I say, oh, okay, well, I don't want to recompose a Michael Jackson song, but hey, maybe we can use that as an inspiration and feed AI to give some directions into something. So that's what I like quite a bit.
And I think maybe it was Eric, alluded to this earlier. So the part I love about my job is the creative process. And unfortunately, with our jobs, the creative process can sometimes be 50 to 60% of what we do. And then the rest is like administrative, workflow, file manager, and blah, blah, blah. And so for me, the thing that excites me about AI is I don't see myself personally using AI for creative generation. Just because that's the part I love the most. But I do see there's a lot of mundane tasks and heavy administrative tasks that, I kind of get excited about, having that kind of support. There's a few tools I'm using at the moment and just trialing. I'm working on a series called Inner Nature for PBS. And honestly, it's been a really crazy timeline, and where I'm like writing sometimes 35 to 40 minutes of music in a week, which I highly don't recommend. But I think all of you who work on episodic work know the pace of that. And so I've been like, okay, I need any tools that I can get my hands on to speed up that process and kind of make it as smooth as possible, but still give my showrunners the best output. The one thing, I've been using a lot of Otter. I don't know whether any of you guys use Otter, but Otter's fantastic because so in our spotting sessions, for example, if I'm just talking through, let's say we're doing a Zoom call and we're doing the spot, I just spit out the time code, and then Otter will capture all of the notes against that time code, which makes my spotting process so much easier because we spot and we respot and we respot and we respot, right? But when we're doing edits, and so it just makes that really smooth. I also find with non-scripted work, sometimes, we don't have a script to read. And I do love the visual side of filmmaking, as well as also being able to read where the narrative is, heading. And so one thing that Otter does really well is it actually can transcribe, time coded the narrative for me, which is super helpful because sometimes I find during swatting sessions, the director might be like, I really want to accentuate this line. And, you know, when you're on a call, sometimes you just don't capture those notes. And so with Otter, I can actually like find exactly where that line is. And then I can, you know, make sure that I hit that point. I find it's for things like that. You know, even, and Faith can probably talk to this more because she's an expert on audio. I don't consider myself an audio expert. I'm like more of a musician, but when I'm sending concepts to directors and showrunners, I love to use isotope, ozone, and neutron. So basically, for those that aren't aware of these tools, basically it's like a mixing and a mastering tool where it can actually listen to your composition and then recommend a mastering chain, for example. So it's a really kind of fast way of just getting your composition to an elevated level. Now, I don't use it for the actual final score because I do love to send it to experts like Eric and, you know, Faith to actually do their magic on the mix. But for like that, you know, first round, second round feedback, it is super helpful. And honestly, because it can be time consuming sitting there like mixing your work when you just want to get like that first round feedback right on the track. And so I find that super helpful. Anyway, I've been like talking so much about this and I'd love to like pass on to Faith because I feel like she would have more to say in this space.
No, absolutely. That's a really good point, and that transitions really well into talking about isotope because that's probably one of my favorite tools that I use incredibly consistently on every single project ever since I was in school to now. And what I really, really enjoy about isotope when I was preparing to speak on isotope for this, I kind of looked into it and did some research into what Isotope has said as like a statement about how they kind of use their AI. And in one article, they kind of say they talk about the differences between different AI because there's a when you say AI, it's a very broad term because at the end of the day, it's just a very complex algorithm written by people. But they say that AI mastering is only as good as its algorithms, and not all algorithms are created equal. At Isotope, we tend to think of this in terms of assistive audio technology. So, what I really like about that is Isotope puts the creative first, and the technology is just there to help the creative make the best product that they can. And that you touched on something that I literally had written down perfectly is that a lot of Isotope's products are great for people who aren't quite well versed in like the nitty gritty of audio technology. It's like a lot of it is a really good blanket for just like a, you know, like a first pass to send to a director, something to make it nice and clean and neat. But also a lot of their technologies are for well-versed people in audio, people who wouldn't really quite understand how to use their like advanced EQs. Like Isotope has like really great dynamic EQs that do both compression and equalizing at the same time. And so that's a really great tool that kind of uses that assistive audio technology algorithm to help creatives put the creative first so that when I'm working on a project, I have so much more time to work on the sound design because I'm not sitting here like individually EQing every single line, you know, it's a lot more adaptive and intuitive of a product. But I really like how when I looked into the ethics of how Isotope views its products, that it puts the creative first. It's just audio assistive. It's not, its mission isn't to replace, its mission is to assist. And I think that's really important for us as creatives to really look at the tools that we're using and make sure that at the end of the day, they're prioritizing the creativity aspect of it. They're prioritizing the assistive aspect of it instead of the replacement.
I think we spoke about this beforehand about using the tools, and it's an opportunity that's lost for you to learn more. So
Mhm.
like with things like iZotope, if you start relying on them too heavily, and like so for me, like I'm not a mixing and mastering engineer. It's one of the things that I would send out for. So when I do a first pass, I do rely on iZotope. I'm like, I just need you to fix this out nicely for me because it's not something I'm going to do. But again, it's also, I lose that opportunity to learn. So it's about what you value most. And the thing with mixing and mastering is it's about training your ears, and that comes from decades of experience. So yes, I can hear the difference right away, but how do you get there and making sure you learn what it's done, why you like it, why you don't like it. And I think that's quite important. Even with chat and all the other AI tools, like it's very useful, it's very helpful, but also to still use your critical thinking when you are using it and see where it's coming, where it's going, that type of thing. Otherwise, you can get lost and not know how to get out of there, kind of thing.
And it's interesting too, because on that, like, we have to make sure that we're still staying in touch with our, like, the core of the knowledge. For me specifically, my brain is set in like the physics of audio, whereas for you, you're a composer, or Tammy, you're a composer, your priority might be to stay set in your knowledge of like music theory and that kind of thing. For me, like, when it comes to using AI in sound design or using it in dialogue editing, I have to continuously make sure that I'm still learning so much about the way that frequencies interact with each other, the way that if I make this sound designed, that its frequency is not like canceling out another sound's frequency, that it's all sitting well in the mix, that the mix is very like well rounded, that all the frequency are like really pleasing to the ears. Like in school, we learned, I have the privilege of coming from a school that taught us a lot about the physics of sound and the way that our ears interpret different sounds and stuff. And a lot of times AI can help us, encourage us to a certain point. But at the end of the day, like, the human aspect of it is hearing, like, how are these frequencies working together? Like, how is this working with this and this and this and that? And so that's really nice about it. The other thing that might just be in my niche specifically that I would love to speak on is um, organizing sound libraries. AI specifically used in SoundMiner has been super beneficial. And SoundMiner is a program that takes all of your sounds in your sound library when you're using for sound design and sound effect editing, and puts them all in one place so that you can search it up more efficiently instead of looking through every single file and trying to find the right sound. And that has advanced so far over the years, to, searching in book, and it also, the algorithm also helps search, paper, book fall, all of that. And then cataloging as well is a niche that I'm really passionate about. I really enjoy working with like UCS categorization and labeling sound effects. And SoundMiner has something called UCS AI and synonym lookup, which means that it looks at the sound effect description and then generates a label for it based on the UCS, a universal standard categorization thing that somebody made to make categorization for sound effects a little bit more universal. And so it helps assign those to the specific UCS label. It's like faulty sometimes it's not always great, but those abilities to be able to do that have helped me in my personal profession be able to be hired by studios to do their sound library categorization for them, because now it's fast enough. I can work fast enough to where it's affordable that they can pay me to do that. Whereas back in the day, if I had to type out every single, file and every single UCS categorization, it was a lot more tedious. That wouldn't have been affordable for them, and that wouldn't have been time efficient enough for me to make that profitable. But now with like the improvements that SoundMiner has been making for its sound library categorization, that's like an entirely new job opportunity that's opened up for me to be able to offer to studios, be like, hey, would you like your sound library to be customized to UCS so that your sound design process is more efficient for you? And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was an option. And so now that can, be an opportunity. And so that's kind of a new thing that AI has kind of been able to make within Sound Miner, new job opportunities. So that's really nice that that didn't previously exist.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel like I need to have a sidebar conversation with you because I've actually been looking at cataloging recently because working on, TV series like episodic work, for example, you know how you create like a sound world and then you've done an episode, often in forthcoming episodes, I want to try and draw on some of my older tracks. So I've actually been looking at doing, using AI for meta tagging of my previous work so that I can easily just kind of, okay, oh, what was that, that track that I did that was all about like progression and it was about emotive or whatever keyword, so that I can easily kind of draw it up. So I feel like I'm gonna hit you up later, Faith, to get your advice on that.
Yeah, metadata is so like that is such a specific niche that not a lot of people enjoy doing metadata. Like it's a lot,
Yes,
it's a lot of very tedious work.
totally.
But I really got a passion for it when I worked on a sound library for my internship with Shutterstock, and I did it so much that I grew to love it. So
Have you tried the tool Source Audio? Source Audio, it's a AI tool that, yeah, basically they will suggest by listening to your piece, they'll suggest meta tags. I don't know whether you've had a chance to explore that tool, but I've been experimenting it. It's a great starting point and it cuts down a lot of time, but you still need to finesse it and, add your own tags as well. But yeah, I'd be keen to explore some other tools that you're experimenting with.
I wanted to add something. Well, again, what I'll be doing is asking more of questions, right? Like I said, earlier. It's finding this middle ground now, right? Between but the ethics of it and maintaining the creative and prowess, right, in the process. But then just think of like a scenario, right, where I think you had mentioned, a project earlier, Faith, where there was a project and the audio was really bad, just needed ADR, and such. And but then if it was a passion project, where there was no more budget, and the audio was just really bad, but then there's this AI tool that can just generate the ADR that you need just for these spots. Like, what do we do then? Like,
yeah.
what that's the I guess that's the middle ground we're at, right? Where what is then the right thing to do? Again, it's a passion project, there's no money, but then there's this tool that can actually do that. Where, like, what do we do in that instance?
Yeah, absolutely. It's difficult to know, because especially when it is a passion project and you really want to be able to make it work. And at the end of the day, like I did a little bit of research into kind of ethicality in AI. There's this one source that kind of listed AI's ethical challenges. There was bias due to improperly trained algorithms, misuse of generative AI to produce scams or steal other people's content, legal concerns, job displacement, and data privacy concerns. But I think the way that that specifically translates to AI in our kind of creative niche is, like, first, is it stealing somebody else's job? In my specific scenario, I kind of just went off vibes. That's kind of it's something that you kind of as a creative have to discern for yourself. Is this vibe that it's just like, oh, I'm just so passionate about this, I really like don't want to have to take work away from somebody else? Or is it specifically, I can kind of tell that this director or this producer or something is only doing this to cut corners? And in my specific scenario, they literally said to me of just like, I don't have to pay a voice actor to do this. Can you make it AI? And so that kind of was indicative to me of like, this isn't just a like a I can't physically do this. It's like I just don't want to. So much of our jobs is going off. So much of my job specifically is going off vibes with clients, and being able to read the room. And that's another really awesome human part of this career. Is it's so much social interaction. And then the other ones with ethicality was just like, is this stealing someone's content with generative AI? Was this AI trained off of people who didn't give their consent? For this AI to be trained off of their sound design of their work, or was this generative AI specifically trained on, people contributed to this intentionally, or this is being trained off of a sound library that the sound designers consented to this? I think that's also really important, is to do our research into what was this generative AI trained on, and does it have kind of those restrictions? Because as of right now, there's not a lot of laws restricting the theft of content, and a lot of times we see, those AI generative composition files have been just like completely ripped from somebody's original work. But sometimes it's also trained off of people who are like totally willing. It's trained off of people who are, contributing to this intentionally, so that it can be easier for these composers to be kind of like an inspiration.
When this whole AI thing actually started, I think 2-3 years ago, to become a thing. I mean, even before Isotope called it machine learning, but it was still AI, but under a different umbrella. So I think I think at that time nobody had AI as a terminology. And from my mixing perspective on these things, and a couple of years, I read a very interesting quote. I think it was, two quotes. One of them was, "Thank you, AI. I can do my own music. Can you please do my text report?" And I think that is definitely something that I really liked. And the second one was actually, in order to replace me by AI, somebody else needs to prompt exactly how it should be. We're safe, So because this is not, oh, can you make it half a dB louder? Maybe a dB lower. So, and these kind of discussions will never happen with AI because you can't prompt it. So so I think at least in the mixing side of things, we're still good. But I think there was a question in the chat that which I can't answer because I'm not so much in ADR. Maybe you know it. How will actors protect their voice if you can sample and reuse the voice?
I think that goes to what Tammy was saying earlier, is like the only way that I'm aware of at the moment is to speak to your representatives at the state, national level, and all of those kind of things, because it's all going to come down to international laws and local laws around companies and what they can do. And I think that's pretty much where we are at, unless there is other technology that I'm unaware of.
I haven't looked, to be fair, I haven't looked a lot into the acting side of it, because there's got to be an implication, with using voice. And yeah, I would say I would definitely be keeping abreast of some of the things that they're monitoring in terms of changes. It's very interesting because in the United States, for example, those who were holding senior positions in the copyright office have actually been moved out. And so there's like a lot of change happening in terms of the copyright space. So I would definitely keep on top of that, because I know your guilds, or I'm just trying to think what isn't like an equivalent organization of a guild, but whatever kind of like represents your space, definitely talk to those advisors and see, what they're seeing in the market and how you can get involved. For example, my guild, they're actually giving us letter templates of things we can actually write to our local representatives in terms of, how to protect our work being used in generative AI. So that's if you want to. I mean, to Faith's point, some people actually are really open to their work being involved in training, right? So it really depends on your personal stance and your comfortability with all of that. So yeah.
What are your hot tips, your final comments, something, your advices, where you want AI to go for you? Yeah, Faith, you unmuted instantly. You want to start with that?
I was just getting ready. But Yeah, that's really, really neat, Tammy, that you actually got some letter formats to send um to your representatives. And I think I'm just going to branch right off of that. Stay educated, stay vigilant, continue to, when these new things are popping up, know there's not a lot of regulations around it. Be the person to look into that, and to look into, if you as a creative in this industry, in order to preserve the, you know, the humanness of our industry and to make it efficient, look into that. Look into, um, be educated on what we can do to continue to preserve the industry, and to make it safe to preserve our content. And then just lastly, stay creative, like keep learning. It's really easy when technology can make your life easier to become a little bit stagnant, and to stop learning when things get easy, and just continue to stay in touch with, you know, for a sound designer, stay in touch with the physics of sound, stay in touch, continuously train your ears. For composers, stay in touch with music theory. Like Kelsey, you said that you even use ChatGPT to help you continue to learn music theory. Like, stay in touch with that, stay in touch with like the roots of what we do. Because at the end of the day, that's the one thing that AI can't replace, is the human creative part of it.
I completely agree with Faith. Stay learning. Just continue to just keep abreast of everything. But also, just to add, and I'll give this is more from then my perspective, right? Because we had one of these instances last year. We went and invested in an ADR setup for ADR and dubbing, and all. And again, now it's to be seen whether that is like a great investment. So my advice is then just watch what you invest in, because things are constantly evolving and constantly changing. So stay abreast, so that you are in the know. You don't have to like AI, you don't have to be completely in love with AI, but then you have to be educated. So my advice is just know what is out there, so you know what your next steps would be, and so that you could remain relevant as the world evolves.
Don't get complacent and let your skills atrophy because you are relying too heavily on, say, Isotope to do it all for you, and then you can't actually piece together what's happening. Or ChatGPT spits out something that's incorrect and you are too deep in it to be able to be like, wait, hold on, how do I actually do this by myself? So I think that would be my hot tip, but also stay up to date with what's going on, because it is a tool at the end of the day, and it is about how you use it. And the people who are going to be very successful in the future, in my opinion, are people who have found ways to integrate it and use it effectively and efficiently within their process, while still remaining like true to themselves and their music or whatever their craft is.
Yeah, I would agree with all of the above. And I think on top of that, my advice would be know your point of difference, as whether you're a creative or a sound in the sound world. Know what you bring to the table. So that means also understanding the tools that are out there and how you differentiate, and what added element you bring right to the space. And then my second piece is just be human. I think being human, and that human experience that you have. So, for example, that I have between my directors and showrunners and the team that I work with, there's nothing that beats that human interaction. Often I feel I don't always get work because my music is that good. Like, it's actually because people hopefully enjoy the experience of working with me. And so I think as humans, that can be our biggest point of difference. If you can build a really strong working relationship and be someone that people just want to get around because they're like, wow, like that person really is on my team, and they help me to like reach new levels. Like, an AI can like never replace that human element. So that's my other little takeaway or hot tip.
I think what we all want, no matter which department, in film, in music, in creating arts, is transporting emotions one way or another. And the golden question is, can a computer do that? I would put a big question mark on that. So that would be my final comment.
Thank you to our speakers for such an inspiring and informative talk.